guys, and welcome back to Digital Artcast. Another episode coming at you, and I'm hoping that again during these trying times, people are staying safe and you're looking after yourself. I hope you're being productive and finding passion in whatever project you're on currently. These episodes again coming out, trying to space them out a bit more methodically as the time goes on. Again, I said I would be making sure that these were a little further between, and this time the previous mantra that we had where we were doing 5 or 6 episodes a month, of course, wasn't sustainable. So now we are trying to make them a bit more spaced out, so 1 to 2 a month. So this one is probably one that I have been looking to do for a while, and one specifically that I would enjoy because, of course, these episodes, typically I get to interview people, who are from different backgrounds or who come from areas, where, I've maybe discovered them on a certain ArtStation website, or I've discovered them through a blog. But this particular artist I've been a fan of for a long time, mostly because he is also a Zelda enthusiast like me, but also because he's just an amazing artist, and his ArtStation, his YouTube channel, everything he really touches turns to gold. His stuff is just incredible. So if you guys could welcome me in introducing today's guest, I'm going to speak today to the incredibly talented and always just cheerful Mr. Tyler Edlin. Hey, Tyler.
Thank you for having me on here. Don't oversell me too much there. I'm doing all right, though.
Yeah. Well, I like to try and pep up some of the guests we have here because I think one of the things I've learned since I've entered the industry a couple of years ago is that artists are very self-deprecating. So I try to make this a time where we enjoy art together, but also celebrate the fact that you've been invited on here because, for me, you're a special kind of guy, a special kind of artist. So
thank you very much.
Yeah. Just on that fact, I was talking about it the other day with my friends, but I think one of the first things I seen from you was a Zelda piece. I think actually not too long after Breath of the Wild had released, and I was just instantly attracted to it, of course, because I'm a Zelda nut. I'm covered in Zelda tattoos, and I've played Zelda since I was about 5. But
that's awesome.
But yeah, so I think it's just a thing where you find this small collection of artists who are not only part of the industry but are also geeks for it. Like they also have a passion for the industry because they're gamers, or they're movie enthusiasts, or whatever. Because I think one of the weirdest things I found was interviewing people or talking to people in the industry who, like, they didn't play video games, they didn't watch movies, and I was kind of like, how do you exist? How are you involved in? Why be in this industry if this isn't something you like? But yeah, you seem to have a real passion for games, media in general.
I'm definitely a gamer first and artist second.
Oh wow! Okay,
it's not an addiction. It's something I have control over 100%. But I mean, I've been gaming right since I was 5. That's what I've always done. And then I only started doing art when I realized I got into the own world, and I didn't want to work in a factory for the rest of my life. That's literally the only reason.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, like the first game I got when I was 5 years old was The Legend of Zelda on NES. It was the gold cartridge. So like, yeah, that was my first introduction. And then, of course, a couple of years ago, when I was 27, I left my job as an engineer because I was the same. Like I got to that point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something meaningful with my life. And then, of course, here I am now. But yeah, I think it's a common thing with a lot of people who have left another life behind them and tried to move on to something else. And that I think you've succeeded 100%. Because I think people, there's a kind of split, right? People will know you for your artwork. Yes. Then there's a lot of people also who will know you for your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's amazing how separate that kind of is sometimes. But I see it every week.
Right. Is that more like saying you're a gamer first, an artist second, and a YouTuber third?
I don't even know. Yeah, I never even thought of it like, YouTube just kind of happened accidentally, I suppose. But it just as an example, like I posted a very old piece on Instagram this week. I don't, I do a little reposting each and every week because I don't produce that much. But it was a piece, I think, from 2010 or 11. And I had a YouTube video on it, before it was something I did regularly. I just kind of threw it up. It was in this Japanese sort of red floating city. And people were like, oh, like, they were following me on Instagram and everything. or various places, but like, oh, that is your piece. I saw that, a decade ago, and that I really like that and everything. I never associated it with you. It's like, oh,
With
okay.
you.
So that's just how it is, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting as well because I think when I first came across you again, like I was saying, it was a Zelda piece. I think it was a trap or something like
Yeah.
that was one of them. So that was my first introduction to your art, and I was like, oh, who drew this? And of course, every time I see a piece and it's maybe I go, I think it was actually on some Zelda fan, site
Mhm.
or Instagram page, and which is another whole other conversation, but yeah, it led me back to your art station, thank God, and then of course I discovered your YouTube channel and your Gumroads and brush sauce and everything
Yeah.
to do with that. And there's so much. So I suppose the question we usually tend to put to people is like, where did this all start for you? Like, did you do the traditional method of, did you go to school? Did you study for this? Or was this something that you just was
I
a
did.
passion for? Yeah.
I did a
Right.
very, very kind of uninteresting traditional sort of flow, where I was working back in 2007 or 8 for our family business, my dad's business that they had built, two or
Mm-hmm.
three generations in it. It was a steel shop, it was a manufacturing place. They fabricated, and built all kinds of, machine parts, things like that. And by trade, they're kind of blacksmiths. So it was just like a very industrial sort of place, which I quickly learned that wasn't for me. It was just very dark, very filthy, very sooty. Not that I'm a very
Right.
clean person, but I don't know, some just constantly getting like metal scraps of shard and sparks flung at you, like scrubbing the soot out of my arm hair every day. That got old
Right.
fast. It did.
Yeah.
So that was like always an option, I suppose. Like, oh well, if I can't figure things out, I could do that. But then, I just
Right.
rolled in some local art schools. They were
Right.
expensive. I'm still paying for them,
Mm-hmm.
but I tried it out because I didn't really know what else to do with myself. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what started it. And they were traditional art schools, so because they were local, I wasn't really gonna. I don't know. I was too naive or whatever to go travel. I didn't even know about anything back then either. Like, I don't know what options there even were.
Right.
There might have been
Yeah.
like the Rhode Island School of Design over here, RISD, but I mean that's twice as much than what I paid, and
Right.
they're just art fundamentals and they're a name. And then of course
Yeah.
there was the art center, I think maybe in like California somewhere, which may have been by reputation probably the best. But I wasn't in a position at the time to relocate across the country and
Of
then
course.
go to like this very expensive art school. I wouldn't even know where to start with that. I was just kind of, okay, I'm gonna still work, do all my jobs, but I'm gonna go, into school on the side and see where I can take that. So I would basically, start to go to work, from my father's business in the morning. I'd go to some classes in the afternoon, and then I'd go to take additional courses at a local museum. The city museum, the art museum there had courses they would run at night. So I did that
Right.
for a couple years, and then that eventually, somewhere in there, it segued into getting some work at a local game company doing. It was, I guess, the correct term that I would call it is like they'd call it mobile games now, or like I guess they're casual. They're just casual games. They were like
Right.
hidden picture games and puzzle based games, things like that. I don't even know how, like, they found me though. I think because may have been one of like the 5 artists in Massachusetts at the time. So
Yeah.
I was working with them for a good 2 years. So it was mostly remote, even though they were local. But I'd go in the office. I'd meet and talk with them. We'd do meetings. They'd have me test out various things that they were programming at the time. But I did that for a while to just get some mileage. And yeah, I had fun with that because I got to sit at home finally all day, and I was just making their art. It was never very like amazing or anything. They gave me access to their stock sites, for like all their photo stuff, because it
Right.
was mostly just like photo manipulation stuff, and then composition and lighting. So it wasn't really much designing, concepting, or it was somewhere between illustrating and just using Photoshop to kind of blend all the scenes and puzzle pieces together and stuff. But it was all right.
Right.
I wouldn't complain. It paid decent enough, but at the same time, um, I think my problem with that too is because I was getting a little bit of getting that in every day, daily, like 6 to 8 hours. I
Mm-hmm.
was one of those people. If I wasn't that working, I was doing other things. I wasn't one unfortunately, now in retrospect, to not go practice and develop my craft further
Mhm.
after I put my, work hours in. So
Right.
I totally like stagnated growth wise for
Yeah.
that period of time that I was there. I didn't learn like, so much. I got the job experience, but I didn't push my skills. And it really wasn't until I got laid off, from there during, I think, that first recession, that we
Right.
had like 2009.
One of many.
Yeah, yeah, I got laid off from there, and I was like back out in the workforce again, like full time. So I was just hustling. I was driving school buses. I was doing all kinds of things. And then I was like, that makes that position, that when someone literally lights that fire underneath
Right.
yourself, like that is all the motivation I needed. I just started, drawing, and a year or two later, I was just making, okay, I'm gonna make time lapses now, just throw them on YouTube occasionally. But I was
Mhm.
actively trying at that point for the first time, since the art school days, I was trying to get better.
Yeah.
Um, and sure enough, when you actually try to get better, I feel it wasn't that hard. I was improving, when I was constantly sticking, to it. But I mean, it was a very, very slow start in those times for me. There was just, if I, really wanted to take my craft further, the really only option, they had the concept art,
Mhm.
forums, that everybody talks about. There was those. You'd love to kind of, I was more of like a lurker than those. I was way too shy to go post
Mhm.
anything on those, but it was fun to see and just get into that tight knit community there and just watch and just kind of take it in. That there's
Yeah.
nothing else quite like that. Even today, and I loved it. And then, of course, like through there, you could figure, okay, that there's a Gnomon school, and they put out a very expensive line of DVDs. The Feng Zhu had his. Dylan Cole had his on matte painting. James Klein had his on like design. They all had. I'd blow every bit of money I had on those DVDs. And Ryan Church, these guys were all working on, just had come off like the Star Wars prequels. And
Yeah.
so they had, when I would see these guys digitally paint and then put together these paintings and drawings and stuff within the span of like 2 hours, some of them were actually real time. It was just mind blowing for me. And that's what really helped, using those DVDs in combination of my foundational experience, that I had from art school,
Yeah.
which was all traditional. It was
Yeah.
watercolors and oils, that routine stuff. But that foundation is what I needed with the new material that they were putting out. That I kind of could piece everything in together, in
Mhm.
between, and it just basically slowly, progress my skills and how I would try to develop things, I guess, from there.
I mean, it's interesting you say this when you talk about, even the line you use where when I tried to get better, I did. I think that's the thing I've found with, even people who email me, and I'm an absolute, beginner in most of the things I do, but, I'm speaking to like, absolute beginner students. They're always like, yeah, I mean, what websites should I use, or how can I utilize ArtStation, or what do you think CGMA? And I'm like, honestly, just sit down and do the work. Like,
Yeah.
it sounds crazy, and it sounds so simple it can't be true, but it really is. It comes down to that like if you physically just sit, it's like that meme. You ever seen that one on Facebook where it's like the guy's like, oh, I want to draw, but I don't know where to start, and the guy like physically restrains him and like puts a pencil in his hand and sits him down at the desk, and he's just like got the thumb up. I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it takes.
That's what it is. These people today, they're kind of lucky, right? Because they do have more options than I ever had. They have more resources at a much more affordable, a much more affordable pricing than
Yeah.
they've ever had. But at the end of the day, you can't get, of course, distracted with social medias. You can't be distracted by going on ArtStation and just getting
Mhm.
discouraged by looking, at all the amazing art drops, left and right, because that never will go away. You have to just manage
Yeah.
it. Because new game comes out, the Ghost of Tsushima drops, and I'm looking at all those dudes' art on there. I'm like, oh my god, I did like a live reaction to me like the day they did the art drop. I never put it on YouTube or anything, but I was in my weekly art hangout that I do
Right.
with the Brush Sauce crew Monday nights in the States. And I was just like, all right, you guys can just watch this. I'm going to click on this stuff, and you
Mhm.
can just watch my jaw drop real time when I go. And it was just mind blowing that, the cutting edge techniques and the craftsmanship that just like
Yeah.
went into that. And it never stops amazing me. And it never stops like it makes me rethink my life. Like, what the heck do I have to do to paint, something like that? I can kind of figure out some stuff here and there, but like that is like, whoo, they got like
Yeah.
just the way they got the highlight on that wet branch that's also in the mud that also has a flame arrow kind of get like wow, that's extremely technically challenging that, and and you just, no matter how they got there, it's like it doesn't even matter. It's just like that's just, it's well thought out, it's well crafted. And it
Yeah.
and what I'm trying to get at, and I guess a long-winded way, is the idea or notion of like just going online and being absolutely floored by top level talent never goes away. And that feeling that like, okay, it kind of just pinches me, up, and I'm like, oh, you like shrivel up. It's like, that is so good. That always will, never is gone, never gone away from me. And it's something that always just perplexes me. And you never kind of hit the top of that mountain, and where you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna stagnate here, like, and just kind of, no, there's always, well, of course, the very young, version of me kind of had a version of that. But again, I don't want to go back to those times. But yeah, I mean, good art and good design is always something to, that takes interest and certainly consumes me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well because when you talk about drooling over other people's work, and even to an extent when students do that, when they go on art station and they open the trending page and they're like, oh my god, and Jesus, there's so much stuff, and look at this and look at. But then the thing I think that I've took almost 5 years to come to terms with is like, my art has a particular style. I do things in a particular way, and I have a very unique take on things I do.
Hmm.
That's good for me, and that will always be my style. And the thing is that the more you look about and try to think, well, I could be painting super hyper rustic stuff with 3D and
Yeah.
using Blender and using DAZ, and I mean whatever. I think the thing that I'm trying to get is that people are always looking across the pond thinking the grass is greener on the other side. Right? You're
Yes.
looking at the guys at Sony thinking, oh my god, but then there's probably a couple of guys for Sony, and me including, that look at your stuff and think, Jesus, I wish I could paint like Tyler. You know what I mean? Like, it's always going to be the mirror reflection. You're never going to have someone who's looking at things like I don't give a shit. I think when you find your niche and you dig into that like 100%, because that's, then again, you're bringing the argument of like specialized versus generalized. And for me, all days of the week, I think that people who specialize in one particular thing and do really well at that will infinitely have more work than people who know just about everything. I mean, like, obviously those people will also get work, but then I
Yeah.
think the people who excel are the people who are like, do one thing and do it really well. I don't know if you feel the same. Or
Oh, I 100. I've been talking about that all week. Because I put up a community sort of feeler on my channel last week. I wanted to make a video about style. I never really kind of made a separate video altogether where I gave my thoughts on style. And I know there's like 5,000 other videos out there that they're like, how to define your style. It's always somebody. Well, you look at this and you do. They're all the same, and they're all right. But like, I was like, what do you guys think? What do you guys want to hear about style? And that was the number one thing that came up. People, and I think those younger, inexperienced artists don't know whether
mm-hmm.
they should, do one style or do multiple. I think a lot of them can see the innate sort of pro and con with that. Like, okay, I'm gonna be really good at this, or I should make myself be highly flexible so I can do all these things to get even more clients. So I think that notion really kind of ties up a lot of youngsters' minds, because I mean that's a perplexing thought when you really think hard about it. But I've always been under that opinion that, like, find your thing, and regardless, just do it well, and the work is
Mm-hmm.
always going to come to you. You won't have to cater and bend to other people's styles. They'll want your product, they want your brand, if you do
Mm-hmm.
it well enough. And if you
Yeah.
just focus on making, doing you, rather than looking across the pond and like, okay, and wasting all your creative energy trying to like force feed other people's techniques, other people's process, because you might find you can do it. You
Mm-hmm.
may even find out after the fact you don't even enjoy it. But I guess,
Yeah.
like I said, it is good to kind of do a little bit, particularly, I guess, if you're younger, try a little bit of everything, of course, and then
Yeah.
find what you come back to, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think also it's very important to find what you don't like. That's
Mhm.
almost as important. Finding the things that like you absolutely hate. Like, doing a character and then being like, oh, I hate characters. But then like, at least right? Like,
Yeah,
you
at
don't want to
least
do that anymore. Yeah, because you're like, I mean, you're pretty much 100%, no, 90-ish environments, right? Like that's like your bread and butter.
Yeah,
Is
that's what I try to that's what I try to advertise. When I do a character, it's it's
yeah,
never as strong, no matter how much I try. I don't know
yeah,
what it would, even if I had the discipline, right, to sit down there, or like a lot of us, to go
yeah,
so against what comes natural to you.
yeah,
You know, you could grind it out. You could grind out the fun. You could just draw every day. You could just
yeah,
work on expressions. You know, work.
mhm,
I like it. It's, and I think that's achievable, right? It's a skill to
yeah,
train. It just doesn't come as easy. And I think
yeah,
with that, people will also gravitate to your stuff if they know you're enjoying doing it even more. Which is what, you know, shameless plug, my last video was about. You just have to
yeah.
enjoy it. You have to enjoy the process.
Of course, yeah. I think it's also interesting because for me, when I, again, I left my job when I was 27, 28, and my first event was like, God, 2016. I think I was 30. So by that time, the people I was meeting were the same age as me, obviously, but then they had 10 years experience in the industry. So I'm looking at their work thinking, oh my God, I've got so much to catch up on to, not really realizing that it's probably going to take me 10 years to get where they were. So I'm going to be in my 40s probably before I'm really looking at like, an established career. But I think people just it's the generation of now, right? People just want things super fast. They want to be a
Yeah,
concept artist of the year. They want, it's almost like the 3 minute ab stuff, and people are advertising on websites like be an amazing painter in 6 months, this 2 month course from what I mean, like it's
I know.
getting to that level, almost infomercial. And I think it's like if you just focus on the thing you love and do a lot of it, like even the stupidest thing where like last year when I got like I finished university, I went for a job interview, I didn't get it, and like I spent almost I think a year in just self pity mode where I just didn't come out my shell and didn't want to work, and I was trying different things but wasn't really committing. And for the first time in like 3 weeks ago, I sat down and I was like, right, I know I want to make stylized art, I know I want to be an environment artist, and I know I'm really good at 3D. Let's combine all those things and see where we land. I just published that project, which I think you've
Hmm.
seen. And then I'm not joking, like this morning, like in the AM, somebody emailed me being like, I'm working on this game project. I'm looking for stylized assets. Would you be interested? I was like, well, fuck me. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like to come to that conclusion after years of being like, what I want to do, how am I going to, measure myself as an artist, or how am I going to advertise my stuff? When I just focused on the thing I wanted, it came to me. So I mean, like,
it
I think
happens
that's
every time that way
yeah,
too. Every time.
yeah, yeah, and that's the same with you, right?
Yeah.
That's how you've kind of
Yeah, because
yourself all the
I
way.
was dabbling in a bit of everything, you know, too, in the mid, you know, like 2014, 15, 16. I was just, I mean, I was trying to better my skills, but I was also trying, you know, I seen what a lot of the work was, you know, that was when everyone really started to incorporate like those really high 3D models into their
Yeah,
workflow. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm just still doing everything by hand. I had that fear, you know, that I'm lagging behind and that
right.
I'm never going to catch up. I gotta do this 3D to be on that level.
Yeah,
And you know, it doesn't have to be that way. You could
yeah,
do
of course.
you right. You could do your level. You could do your thing, and maybe you can use a little bit of 3D here and there, or a little bit of photo here and there, and just you know focus. Because I've just always really enjoyed the aspect and the process of painting. But the downside with that is that painting it takes forever. No one can
Yes.
BS around that. And but I used to, you know, I probably made a lot of my best pieces. You know, they were like 40-hour plus paintings, and of course nowadays it's harder and harder to find that sort of time, and then it's even harder to find um, you know really good clients that are willing to even pay that. A lot of them honestly will just you know settle for something much quicker, which is fine,
Yeah.
but it's nothing that's gonna get me more work because I'm not gonna put up this painting I kind of just did, and it's like
Right.
I know it's only like half my capacity.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I'm trying to now learn a little bit more of these modern kind of tricks to help
Yeah.
speed up workflow to you know get
Yeah.
iterations quicker to get ideation stuff, and I want to try to apply that of course back to the painting, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's always like you're always learning something and you're trying to I'm not saying reinvent myself, but like I know
Mhm.
I'm at a point where it's like I can do this well, it can do this, but now it's I guess trying to tighten up the workflow and just maximize the overall efficiency of things.
Yeah, of course. Because I think people people too early get stuck on the speed thing. Like they get so engrossed in like how long did that take you? What brush
Mhm.
did you use? The questions you hear over and over and over. And
Over.
I remember, yeah, like and I remember I was watching it was a ZBrush summit. I think it was like 2018 or something. I think it was the year Scott Eaton was there, and he was like talking to one of the guys in the podcast, and he was saying like he was like, what are the most kind of redundant questions you get asked, or is there one in particular? And he was like, how long did that take you? He's like, because especially when you ask that to a professional, you're never going to get an answer that's relevant to you, right?
Yeah.
Because if it took me 4 hours, it's not going to take you 4 hours. It's going to take you 40 hours maybe, or however long.
Yeah.
But then asking that question is redundant because the answer you get isn't really going to work for you. So it's the same way like when people see stuff like Blender, when they see all these programs, it's almost they're kind of thinking, oh great, now I can do this painting in an hour. Now I can do it in 30 minutes. You know yourself, and I know that speed is something that comes with just iteration. We're doing it more and more. But then of course that shouldn't be your first concern is
Yeah, it
how long will
shouldn't be
things.
you shouldn't be consuming or even considering during the art of making thing. You should just be focusing on that
Mhm.
creativity, that creative side, not
Yeah.
like, hey, am I doing this fast enough?
Yeah. I mean, because well, speed I think especially is something that's particular to production.
Mm,
So if you're talking about you're going to go work in, I don't know, Lucasfilm or ILM or something like that, then of course they guys need to be pumping stuff out at quite a fast rate because movie production, as we know, is like
yeah, it's
10 times the speed of everything else.
it's insane. They needed it
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah, basically, yeah. But this is why a lot of these production studios, struggle sometimes with work or things are missed, or because everything is such a rush. But then there's game studios who take 5 years on a project,
Yeah.
no 6 months. So, but then even then, those guys look for speed, but no speed in an essence where you're turning over stuff in a day, maybe a couple of weeks. But
Anything
um,
worthwhile takes time. Is what it
yeah, of
comes
course,
down to,
yeah,
that's what I've always tried to wear, on my sleeves. It's like even if I have fun doing like those, like you see it online, I'm sure a lot too. Like people just
yeah,
spitting out like daily paintings and stuff, and I think that that's all and fine, and depending on what
mhm,
your intent is. But if
yeah,
you're trying to build like a name for yourself, or you're trying to build a brand or something to really market
yeah,
yourself, I don't think that is the best way to do it, because there's only so much you're going to accomplish on a daily. It's always going to look or have the
yeah,
depth of a daily. But if you see a pro artist doing that and they're just kind of either experimenting with brushwork, maybe they're trying out a new technique or brush, and they're spitting things out, I think that's fine for them, because they've
yeah,
already been established, they already have their brand, and they're just kind
yeah,
of warming up or exercising. I think it's just a very different intention than you see someone that's trying to get work and also
yeah,
doing that. You have to really separate the two. I think the two gears, the high and the low.
yeah,
You got it's good to do the quick stuff, but you should also be working on the back burner. You should have a bigger project like you were working on with your 3D, that you just
yeah,
took your time, you did it piece by piece, and
yeah,
after 2 or 3 weeks, whatever it was, right, you had something that really showed a deeper level of craftsmanship that someone
yeah.
cannot usually just spit out in an afternoon.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was also the fact that if you now look at the thing I'd done over a couple of weeks and then measure that with the rest of the stuff in my portfolio that I'd done in like, a weekend or a day, you just automatically just see the difference, the quality level of something,
Hmm.
that took that much time. And I think that's, like when we're talking about, because this, I just found out there's this thing in October that, was a Polygon, I think he does. It's called Sculptober, where you try and do a sculpt, via a prompt every day. And I thought, oh, that'd be quite interesting. But then I think with a lot of this stuff, if you're doing it daily, stuff like that shouldn't live in your portfolio, right? That's something like for Instagram, Facebook,
Yep.
some kind of whatever. You can do those things, but then you have to understand this isn't a portfolio piece. This isn't something that's going to sit in my portfolio and be like, this is why you should hire me. That's something that's like you said, like an exercise, a warm up, flexing a creative muscle. Because I think with the prompts thing, it's probably making you utilize that part of your brain where you have to come up with ideas for iteration. So that, in a sense, is a great thing to do. But then, yeah, the things you probably have as a result at the end of that day is not going to be something that you're going to post in your ArtStation.
Yeah.
Or again, if you do, maybe even the fact I know people have these separate sections that are like sketches, right? So this is just something that's quick, it's loose, it isn't really part of my main thing. But then it's the same with the event that comes with October as well, and a lot of these different things. It's more like a community participation, right? It's something you do typically just to get involved in a community or get
Yeah.
noticed.
Yeah, it's never a bad thing, right? To get your name, in a group of people, and I think doing that stuff is absolutely, amazing,
Yeah,
for that type of thing. Because, like, again, you can make the best work, work, in the universe, but if nobody does know you exist, it's going to go ultimately unnoticed. And I'm sure I've seen on ArtStation all the time. I'll see the occasional, like, they're usually some kind of, I think, Chinese or some kind of very distant artist that they
right.
just have like 5 pieces posted. They'll be like, every one of them will be friggin' stunners. They'll be amazing. But, because it's probably because they're not in the various, circuits, social circles,
Mhm.
or on various platforms. Like, that art just sits in this ArtStation vault. Like, you
Yeah,
might stumble upon if you do the right search or click the right thing. But yeah, that's why I think the biggest thing with, coming up and balancing all of this is, I think a lot of us are told you should just focus on the technical. But I think if you're ultimately planning on going any kind of freelance or supporting yourself, as an independent artist, you have to spend at least probably like doing the dailies and things, whatever, just making sure people know you exist, the marketing side and just participation, because that's really half, like they say in school, well, participation's half your grade. That's really true. And in the art world too, because you got
yeah,
people just need to know about you.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's an interesting subject even in itself that you could probably spend an entire hour talking about. But like, with social media in general, how do you kind of approach that? Do you see all your channels as just avenues that connect to like you as a business as one, or do you use them? Does Instagram have its own space for you in your head as opposed to Facebook, or does ArtStation or DV? How do you see them as one collective as a promotion tool, or do you kind of use them individually for different things?
Yeah, both, all both
Okay.
both cases, right? Because obviously we know a lot of people know Instagram something you can definitely spit something out on. It doesn't really have to be done. The community
Yeah.
loves looking at work in progresses. So
Right.
yeah, I'll put things on there. I'll put even my own students' work on there. I think it's a great platform just to get
Yeah.
names out, just to show art, right? It's all about pictures. There's never any drama on Instagram. It's absolutely fantastic for that. You just posting work and enjoying work, and so I do that every chance I get. And then YouTube's, I think of it, that's about delivering messages. That is about, kind of creating a dialogue, more so about, what you're interested in and what I want to talk about, or if I want to show something. I think it's great for that. And then, ArtStation is that platform. That's where you put your oh, I finished a piece. Now I could stick this there, so that, that can take the finished stuff, the polished stuff really well, and then you link them all, together. So you always I see some people have this one, like it's like a idle web page that just has their name with, like, okay, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, like it's just all one thing. But that's I think that's one way to do it. But I think just keeping people should be able to type in your name or something on Google very easily, and your stuff should be found. I see too many times in various art discords, people are always using aliases. They're using random funky names, but it's like,
Right.
what does that show? Like, you got to. I go a step further. I try to put my face with my name on everything. Because, like, I think
Right.
because that's happened on when I've gone to a convention. People they'll recognize me visually and they're like, hey, they'll yell at me or something. But I think that's an important part of it, because
Yeah.
people, like I said, people need to know who you are. And if you
Mhm.
just like some, no face behind a weird alias, that,
Yeah.
eh, kitten diver, whatever the heck you want to be, soul seeker, whatever it is going to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, no one can is really going to treat that professionally. No one's going to take that seriously.
Yeah.
And, it's just kind of like, okay, you're that,
Mm.
you got to start with a good foundation,
Yeah. I
build it
think
up.
it. I was going to say, I think it probably just pertains to how you want to be seen in the world, because if you're not going to be part of the industry per se, and the fact that you're not going to want to be involved in like concept art or working on stuff, then maybe that would be a thing where you can have an alias. Because I know a lot of guys who work like specifically in comics or on DeviantArt, they guys can have aliases because they didn't really need to be known in a particular way. But with us, I think especially even with you, because you're a personality also on YouTube, and YouTube is almost where you do most of your work, you kind of have to have that association with your name brand, because like people wouldn't really want to know who you were, because people, especially in YouTube, and I think a lot of people don't really get this in Twitch and YouTube and all those kind of media outlets, is that people fall in love not with your channel but with you, with your personality. Like that's what they come to the channel for. That's why they buy your packs. That's why they learn specifically from you, because they sometimes see themselves in you, or they see things that you do that they want to do or emulate. So I think like for you, your brand has to be associated with your face, because you're selling that constantly, right? Whereas the guy who like works in, I'm just picking a name out of a hat here, but who works in id Software making stuff for Doom, doesn't have an art station, doesn't have any kind of social media, just goes and does his job, goes home at the end of the day. He doesn't need to have that social,
Yeah, you're
outreach,
right.
because so I think it's just particular on where you want to land in the industry, right? And for you and me particularly, like I know I started the podcast because it was a means of getting noticed, getting seen at events, people knew who I was. And of course I get to talk to people at your level when I'm obviously at the start, but then I'm almost at an equal grounds in that sense that we're both artists, we're both passionate, we both love the industry. So for me, that was my niche. And I always say that when I've done talks at universities, I'm like, you have to find your niche, or you have to find something that makes you stand out. And it sounds so vast because folk are like, how the fuck did I figure that out? But for me, like, it was the podcast. So, was that something you found with YouTube? You had your niche there as well?
Yeah, I never thought of it in that particular way though. Originally it was just like, I don't know. Hey, I made a painting. This is how I did it, and now it started to turn into like I produce the type of content I would want to see. I
Right.
think there's been a huge surgence this particular year. Everyone that's doing character based art, that paints those pretty Pinterest girls, and that talks a lot about, like there's just a lot of them. There's a lot of YouTube channels that have like skyrocketed this year, and that's fine. I love, they're all genuine talented creators and stuff, but I've noticed mine was lagging behind because I'm just like, maybe I have a particular taste or something. Because like I want to get a little bit of art facts. I want to see a little bit of behind the scenes. Like I like to know if I'm looking at a piece, it's not just what brush are you using. It's like, okay, how or why did you create this? What were you thinking at the time? What inspired you? So I think of I try to think of my channel as more of like a behind the scenes featurette, where it's like, okay, I just finished this image, here's what I thought about it. This is what I struggled with. This is what I want to do better next time. Because like that's what I would love to see from any level, kind of artists, working. I would, but not a lot of people have or have used YouTube as a platform to kind of embraced it in that way. Um, a lot of them are more like opinion pieces with a time lapse, of their work and stuff, which is good. I haven't dabbled into too much of that. I don't think probably because I don't have much to say on a lot of, I don't get into hot topics and things like that. I don't know. I try to avoid drama, and I know it, if I was just focused on channel growth, I would have to, kind of get in there,
Right.
like that Ethan Becker guy. He made that one channel with the Jake Parker story thing. That was like, it was like half a
Oh, Jesus
million
Christ.
views in 3 days, like people love a personality, and they love when you match a personality with an opinion on a
Yeah.
tricky current subject. But I'm analyzing my stuff at that. Like, okay, I can have what I like, but I've realized too, particularly talking with the people in the Brush Sauce Discord every week, that they notice like there's a large different side of me when I'm at the end of the night, and I've hung up the collar, and I'm just kind of casually hanging out, cutting loose. That it's a very different side of me that never really happens on the channel. And I think part of me takes that part of it too seriously sometimes. So I'll tighten up, and I'll just want to deliver the facts, say what I'm going to say. So I'm actively aware that I'm trying to get a little bit more fun, a little bit of me anyway, into the channel, because
Right.
I think that could ultimately help that without me having to go into like, all right, I'm going to do a fluff piece on this hot topic this week. Which sex offenders coming out this week? Like, well, it's left and right. It's left and right this year. It's insane. But like,
Yeah, pretty much.
unfortunately, that's what gets the views and stuff. But Yeah, I'm gonna try working on a piece talking about style. Show a little bit of a demo, give a little, and maybe have a little fun along the way.
I mean, yeah, I think you're right in what you're saying, because there was even a whole topic on people when they were like, when Chadwick Boseman died or passed recently,
Hmm.
there was a whole slew of artwork based around him, and people had this mixed reaction where it was like, some people were like, "Oh, that's great that you've done that. It's a real tribute to him," but at the same time, are you kind of profiting off his death? Like, that's what you say when you talk about drama. Is like,
Yes.
how can you sometimes measure that stuff where you're like, okay, I want to pay tribute to this guy and make something really awesome, but then how do I pose that in a way that I'm not like taking the piss, like I'm trying to make money off of this? And I think that's also a difficult thing you see in the drama. I mean, Ethan is a prime example. I fucking love Ethan; he's so funny. But like, I remember when he done the video about I forget the girl's name, something Chan, but she left Disney because she didn't feel appreciated at her job and stuff like that. And like within the first 3 seconds of the video open, he's got like the butcher knife with a mic on it and the glasses, and he's like, "Don't you ever work at Disney? Don't you ever work at Disney?" And I was like, Jesus Christ. But like, that's what he's probably feeding to an audience that is exactly the people he wants to talk to.
Mm.
Whereas like, I think your channel, you're never going to be that Ethan Beck. I know that I'm saying you couldn't, but like, that's not your speed. That's not what
No.
you're trying to do. What you have carved out for yourself is, it's like we talked before, right? Your style. That's almost like a style thing, right? Like what you have on brush shots now, what you've done in CGMA and loads of other places is like, that people know you for what you do, and they come to you for a particular style or teaching method or flexibility or whatever. But I think you have to have that definitely to carve yourself out a niche on any online platform. But I think you've definitely found one where it's like you can be in that realm and no deal in drama and have those like uh oh, um I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He's a Magic the Gathering artist. He's been one for years. He's got a really good YouTube channel, really good Discord. Shit, I forgot his name. American guy, tall,
I
white.
know who you're talking about, but
Yeah.
I've sworn
Ah,
maybe in some communities we should get that name, under the rug
swatches,
for the best.
swatches,
Sarah is
swatches.
Noah.
Yeah, it's swatches. Swatches is his YouTube channel.
Oh,
Is it swatches? Or,
Clint.
yeah,
I
yeah,
thought we were.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Clint. He's
That's
great.
that's yeah. Clint clearly, I think is his
Yes.
name is or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. So like he's existed, I think, for a long time without that
Yeah.
drama shield as well. I think he definitely has his niche again, and very similar to you, has a really active community and people he wants to talk to.
His
Specifically,
community is really fantastic. I've interacted
yeah,
with a lot of them, and they're all so nice. And his moderator reached out to me like, "Hey, I love moderating. Let me know if you ever needed another one." And
yeah.
they're a very welcoming, crowd. And Clint's a nice guy himself.
But I think that's also reflective of just the person he is, and that is the type of people he's attractive to. And when if you find that like he's a really nice guy, then of course the people in his community are going to be super nice as well. And that's what I think I've found with every community is when you dive into a different Discord, excuse me, I think you find the people there are a reflection of the people that they admire. Like, your community would probably be very similar to your mentality or your speed. And it's weird as well. I think that Discord is a whole thing now. I can remember years ago just discovering that app because it was a free alternative to Team Chat when I played games. And now it's like it has its people are doing, but it's like it's almost an alternative for Slack. It's for some people, like they're using it for business emails and conferences,
Yes.
um and I think that's again with the social channels. It's like when you build, when your brand specifically is social, you almost have to juggle that stuff on the daily. Is that like overwhelming at any point, or
I'm overwhelmed by everything. Be like
yeah,
I'm getting like I keep so many loose bits of paper with just lists. I like my mind just like holds less and less knowledge, and I have it seems like these
God.
days less and less time to really sort it. I've just got shelves of papers with lists all around me. Okay, this is a YouTube idea. This is how I want to structure this idea over here. Oh, this is the account information I need to do to call my boiler guy because that thing's too loud.
Uh,
Like, oh my god, it trickles like all over my family life too. It's like I am just like a walking head case because it's hard for I want to talk about flow state for a second. You're just sitting down, getting into the vibe with your art, and just like create and stuff. And, right, that's when you do the best stuff. I have like not been able to get into like a real good solid flow state in ages because of just where my family structure is at right now. Because you always got a dog barking, a kid screaming, someone.
And
Yeah,
a young.
he just turned 8 weeks old
Oh wow.
at the end of this week, actually. So, I'm not sleeping at night, so I can't work at night, and it's this is nothing that's going to be permanent. But like, whew,
Yeah.
I don't know what I used to do with myself when I was, like when I didn't have all this on my plate, because like I honestly wasn't any more productive. That is the scary thing. I have admitted to myself. Like, what the heck was I doing?
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself when like we were talking earlier on. We were kind of setting this up that when you had the little one, you were saying like, I try to structure my days so that in the 9 to 5 I have my work's done then, because I know after that I have to look after the kids or have to feed them or bath them. So I mean, I think with almost I think that's one of the hardest things I'll ever face as a human being, is trying to be a father as well as an artist, because I feel like this industry specifically is that you have to dedicate so much time to make a name for yourself, and especially at your game where you're an online presence, that's something you'll always have to keep in check. Do you feel like that's a constant balancing act? It must be, right?
Yeah, it's a constant. Every day is a hustle. Right. It's the worst part is that I've seen is like I can never 100% commit my mind to what I'm doing at hand. So if I'm upstairs, like most afternoons, I'll spend literally most of the afternoon from like noon at 12 till they go to bed, like at 6 or so. That is all family time. Like I help my wife. We do it with the kids. We take them out. But while I'm doing that, I'm getting my Skype messages from my students, or I'm, checking Instagram occasionally to see what's coming through there. It's like my mind can never be 100%, and I'm working on this. I just haven't found the best way I need to do it. Well, I'm struggling, but right, my mind is doing something else when I'm actively doing this, or when I'm working, I'm thinking about what's going on, over there, or I have to be doing this. So it's like, if I could shut my own mind up, once in a while and just focus, that would be an amazing thing. But I'm since I'm new to being a father, and a lot of this is new, I'm still really sorting out, at least in my own head, a lot of how to balance that, because it is not easy for me anyways. I know there's some other people out there do it very well. Like you would never even know they were like fathers and stuff, but it's like, I'm stuck at home, and they're all home all day, and it's like nothing gets home. Nothing gets done. My father could leave for work when he was, younger, and I would see him at night. And
I'm going to just stop you there, Tyler, because your voice is you're getting almost robotic at this point. I don't know if your internet's tanking or like something's passing out.
Yeah, something tanked.
Yeah, you're like fading into existence.
Because I haven't moved. Is it all right?
Oh no, it's dying again. Yeah. Well, I mean, like we're nearly at the hour thing, so I mean, I'll definitely try and wrap up.
Anything? Any closing thoughts or topics you want to go over?
I was just going to say, if you, I mean, I don't know if you'll be able to do it now, because I don't know if the internet's going to tank, because you're kind of flashing at this point, so I don't know if like your internet's about to die. But if you could just plug like all your social media stuff and anything you've got upcoming and anything you want the guys to know about, then we could probably just wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm working on a new YouTube this week on style, right? We're going to have a nice painting demo with that, continued from last week's, which was on, what the heck was it on? It was all creating art and being happier about it. And again, there's ways if you're a student artist and you want to learn, I offer different services at every price range. At the cheapest, you can get in, on Patreon and get over 60 lessons now for just $7 a month. And then, of course, there's classes and, Gumroads, which are individualized lessons. And that's that. I'm working on a lot.
Great. And then thanks to Tyler again for coming on. Thanks to you guys for checking out the episode. Again, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Check us out on all the different podcast channels. And if you have any questions for Tyler, make sure you leave them below. I'm sure we'll get back to them. And of course, I'll link all of his description, socials, and everything else below, so you can get in touch with him if you want to. And again, thanks again for Tyler coming on and giving up his time. It was really awesome to talk to him. I'm sure we'll try and get him back on at one point. And again, thanks to you guys for listening. If you made it this far, check out other channels or other interviews I've done. And I'll speak to you guys later. Bye.
Gordon, thanks for having me. I sincerely appreciate that. It was great chatting with you. You're going to have to come on my channel now, and we'll have to find a topic to talk about. You guys can find me on Instagram, Facebook, ArtStation. I'm everywhere. And my goal with doing a lot of things was to make, my goal with all of this was to make art education affordable on any budget. So I have patrons, I have YouTube for free, I have everything in between. I have classes that I run, at CGMA, as well as individualized lessons over on Cube Brush or Gumroad. So if you want to just learn on an affordable budget, hit me up. Send me a message. I'll help you out. Take care.